Picture this. A man sits alone in a corner of a coffee shop. No phone in hand, no laptop open, just a simple cup of black coffee and a quiet gaze out the window. Around him, the world is spinning. Fast. Someone is recording a story for their followers. A couple takes turns posing for the perfect selfie. At the next table, two friends are laughing, but it's the kind of laughter that feels more like performance than joy. And then there's him. He's not checking notifications. He's not waiting for someone. He's not filling the silence with noise. He's just there, still, calm, unbothered. And yet, somehow he feels like the most powerful person in the room. Why? Because we've forgotten how to be alone. We've been taught that to sit in stillness means something is wrong, that silence is awkward, that solitude is lack. But it's not. It never was. Society wants you to believe that being alone means being lonely. That if you're not constantly connected, constantly seen, constantly liked, you must be missing something. But what if that's the lie? What if the real strength is the ability to sit with yourself and not flinch? There is a quiet rebellion in solitude, a subtle power in choosing to step away from the noise, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You see, when you no longer seek the world's approval, the world begins to see you differently. You become unpredictable. You're not chasing trends, likes, or applause. You're no longer acting to fit in. You found something deeper, something the world can't sell you. Presence. The man in the coffee shop doesn't need attention to feel alive. He doesn't need affirmation to feel worthy. He's not trying to be seen. He's just being. And that terrifies people, because most of us are running from ourselves, scrolling to numb the silence, swiping to avoid the discomfort, performing instead of reflecting. But the one who stops running, the one who turns inward, finds a stillness that cannot be shaken. That's why the world fears the person who is at peace with themselves. They can't be bought. They can't be manipulated. They can't be silenced by rejection or swayed by opinion. They have a quiet strength. And that, in today's world of constant distraction and artificial validation, is the most dangerous thing you can be. Let's get honest about something most people would rather avoid. The man who no longer needs others to feel whole, he makes people uncomfortable. Not because he's cold, not because he's arrogant, but because he's free. You see, society doesn't just encourage connection. It depends on your dependence. It thrives on your need to be accepted, liked, validated. Every ad you see, every influencer you follow, every algorithm that tracks your behavior is built around one central idea. You are not enough as you are. So you must buy, you must share, you must follow, you must belong. But the self-sufficient man, he disrupts that entire system. He doesn't need the latest product to feel complete. He's not moved by trends. He doesn't chase clout, and he doesn't play the game of public approval. He doesn't need permission to live how he chooses. He listens to himself. He trusts his own judgment. And that terrifies people who've never done the same, because his presence is a mirror. It reflects all the things others haven't yet faced. Their anxiety when alone, their obsession with being seen, their quiet fear of being forgotten. He is not afraid of disappearing. He's not trying to be visible. He's trying to be true. And truth is something we're taught to avoid when it's inconvenient. Society will tell you you're broken if you enjoy solitude. They'll say you're antisocial, detached, difficult. But here's the irony. Those labels come not from your emptiness, but from your fullness. They don't know what to do with someone who isn't chasing approval. So they label him dangerous. And in a way, they're right. Because when you no longer fear being alone, you also stop fearing disapproval. You're not controlled by rejection. You don't collapse when people misunderstand you. You don't shrink to fit someone else's expectations. You stand, and you stand alone. That kind of man threatens every system built on fear, insecurity, and validation seeking. That kind of man can't be sold to, can't be scared into silence, can't be made to conform. That kind of man becomes a force, not loud, not boastful, just solid, quiet, rooted. A presence so grounded that the world's chaos simply moves around him. And maybe the real reason society fears him is because deep down, everyone wishes they could be him. Let's go deeper into the psychology of the dangerous loner. It starts with this simple truth. Most people are addicted to approval. They don't even realize it. They measure their worth by the response they get from others. A like, a reply, a nod of agreement. It becomes their currency of self-esteem. But the dangerous loner? He's broken that addiction. He doesn't post to be seen. He doesn't speak to be validated. He doesn't perform to be accepted. He's found something more enduring, self-respect that exists even in silence, especially in silence. And silence, real unfiltered silence, is where most people meet their discomfort. Leave someone alone with their thoughts for 5 minutes and watch how fast they reach for a distraction. The phone, the music, the noise, anything to avoid being alone with themselves. Why? Because deep down they know what they'll find. Insecurity, regret, shame. But the dangerous loner? He's already been there. He's walked through that battlefield. He's faced the internal noise, the late night questions, the ghosts of his past, and he didn't run. He listened. He listened until the noise quieted, until the chaos revealed its lesson, until he understood that inner peace isn't something you stumble into. It's something you earn by standing still in the fire. And once you face that fire, something else happens. You become unshakable. You don't crumble when criticized. You don't panic when alone. You don't compromise yourself just to be accepted. That level of inner resilience makes you immune to manipulation. And that's what makes you dangerous. People can't use rejection to control you. They can't shame you into submission. They can't dangle approval like a carrot on a stick because you've stopped chasing it altogether. They can't figure out what you want because what you want isn't external. You're not playing their game anymore. And when you stop playing their game, you change the rules without saying a word. You create a presence that commands respect, not through dominance, but through depth. And here's the part they'll never say out loud. They wish they had your peace. Because the world is full of people chasing everything, money, beauty, power, attention, hoping it'll give them what you've already found in silence. And that's why the dangerous loner doesn't need to raise his voice. His stillness is louder than their noise. Now let's look at a man who mastered this stillness long before our world drowned in noise. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, emperor of Rome, commander of armies, voice of an empire. He could have surrounded himself with flattery, drowned himself in pleasure, and filled his days with the constant validation of a kingdom kneeling at his feet. But he didn't. Instead, every evening, Marcus returned to something simple. A quiet desk, a dim flame, a blank page, and he wrote, not for the world, not for legacy, just for himself. He called it the discipline of desire, a practice of inner honesty. Each night he would ask himself questions most of us are too afraid to face. What did I crave today that I didn't need? What did I fear that was outside my control? What did I do to seek approval that compromised my values? These weren't exercises in shame. They were acts of self-liberation. Because Marcus understood something our modern world has forgotten. Strength doesn't come from domination. It comes from clarity, from knowing yourself so well that nothing outside of you can pull you off balance. While the empire moved around him, he stood still within himself, grounded, aware, aligned. He knew that solitude wasn't emptiness, it was training, a sacred arena where he could wrestle with his own nature, his impulses, his doubts, his ambition, and emerge more focused, more centered, more free. This wasn't isolation, it was preparation. Because when you've spent enough time with your own mind, you stop being seduced by the superficial. You no longer chase what doesn't matter. You no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer react to every opinion thrown your way. You respond thoughtfully, calmly, with presence. That was the gift Marcus gave himself, and it's one you can give yourself too. But be warned, once you begin this practice, you'll see through everything. You'll see the shallowness behind praise, the emptiness behind status, the fragility behind anger. You'll see how much of the world is just noise disguised as meaning. And while others panic in silence, you'll find peace. Not because your life is perfect, not because you've escaped pain, but because you've stopped running from yourself. You've learned to be still, and in that stillness, you've become dangerous. Now, let's shift from the emperor's quiet reflections to a man who lit the world on fire with his thoughts. Friedrich Nietzsche. He didn't seek solitude. He demanded it, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. He understood something that frightened people then, and still does now, that the most radical act is to think for yourself. Nietzsche once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." And he was right. From birth, we are handed beliefs. What is right? What is wrong? What success looks like? What love means? What makes a life worthwhile? But what if none of it is yours? Nietzsche believed that the truly dangerous person is the one who stops inheriting their values and starts creating them, who looks at every assumption and asks, but why? Not out of rebellion, but out of integrity. Most people are living a script they didn't write. They're chasing dreams that were handed to them. They're following rules they never agreed to. And that's why they feel hollow, even when they win. But the one who steps back, the one who isolates himself not to escape life but to examine it, he begins to see clearly. He asks questions that disrupt the comfort of consensus. Why do I want what I want? Who taught me this? What would I believe if I had never been told what to believe? And here's the dangerous part. Once you begin this process, you can't go back. You can't unknow the truth. You can't pretend the crowd is always wise. You can't unsee the manipulation that exists in systems, in culture, even in relationships. Nietzsche didn't offer comfort. He offered challenge. He wanted you to become strong enough to carry the weight of your own truth, even if it meant walking alone, especially if it meant walking alone. And yes, he paid the price. His solitude became extreme. His honesty too sharp for most. He was called mad, misunderstood, rejected. But his ideas outlived empires because they tapped into something timeless. The one who dares to create their own values becomes untouchable, not because the world accepts them, but because they no longer need the world's acceptance. That's the paradox of dangerous solitude. It makes you more human, not less. It makes you more alive, not less. Because you're no longer performing. You're no longer echoing. You're living. And that, according to both Nietzsche and Marcus, is where real freedom begins. So what exactly makes solitude dangerous? Why does being alone, truly alone, with your thoughts, your fears, your desires, transform a person in a way that rattles the world around them? It comes down to 4 pillars, 4 inner traits that grow in solitude like roots beneath the surface, unseen by most, but unshakable. The first is radical self-honesty. Most people lie to themselves every day, little lies to protect their ego, big lies to maintain the illusion that everything is fine. But the dangerous loner, he stops lying. He looks directly at his flaws, his temptations, his envy, his weaknesses, and doesn't flinch. He sees the shadow within himself and doesn't run from it. He studies it, learns from it, and because of that, he gains a clarity most people never reach. That's why he sees through others so easily, through their manipulation, their charm, their masks. He's already unmasked himself, so no one else can use his blind spots against him. The second is value independence. He's built his beliefs from the ground up, not borrowed, not inherited, not blindly accepted. He knows why he believes what he believes. And because of that, no shame tactic, no guilt trip, no peer pressure can bend him. His morality is self-sustaining, not because he's inflexible, but because it's rooted in reason, in alignment with his lived experience. He doesn't act out of fear of judgment. He acts out of respect for his own code. That makes him unpredictable, untouchable. The third is emotional self-sufficiency. He doesn't depend on others to regulate how he feels. He doesn't collapse when he's misunderstood or unloved. He doesn't ride the emotional roller coaster of external approval. He's his own source of calm, of pride, of peace. That doesn't mean he's numb. It means he's centered. He feels deeply, but he's not ruled by those feelings. He can hold space for sadness without drowning in it. He can sit with anger without becoming destructive. He's a steward of his own emotional world. And the fourth, perhaps the rarest, is intellectual courage. He doesn't just think, he dares to think differently. He challenges what others accept without question. He speaks uncomfortable truths. He explores ideas that others avoid, not to provoke, but to understand. He's not attached to being right. He's attached to being real, to following evidence wherever it leads, even if it means losing certainty, even if it means standing alone. And when all four pillars are in place, self-honesty, value independence, emotional self-sufficiency, and intellectual courage, what you're left with is not just a person who enjoys solitude. You're left with someone who can't be controlled. They can't be bribed with approval. They can't be silenced with shame. They can't be redirected by distraction. They've become dangerous in the highest sense of the word, not destructive, not violent, but sovereign, alive on their own terms. But here's the part most people never see. There's a price to this kind of freedom. It sounds powerful, and it is, but don't mistake it for ease. Don't romanticize it, because becoming this kind of person, the one who no longer bends to fit the world, means you will no longer fit the world. You will be misunderstood. People will look at your peace and call it arrogance. They'll see your silence and label it cold. They'll mistake your independence for distance, and because they can't place you in a box, they'll try to put you in a cage. Some relationships will fall away, not because you pushed anyone out, but because they were only comfortable with the version of you that needed them. When that need disappears, when you show up whole, some people won't know how to meet you there. They needed your dependence, not your strength. Even your family might struggle with it. Your growth can challenge the roles they've come to expect you to play. And when you stop playing them, the script starts to break down. The warmth may still be there, but the comfort, that changes. You will feel isolated, not lonely. Isolation is different. It's the space between the old version of you and the life that's waiting to meet the new one. It's not a punishment, it's a transition, a refining fire. But the temptation to go back, to shrink, to soften, to conform will be real. Because conformity is rewarded. It's easier. It gets applause, approval, likes, invitations, attention. But at what cost? The price of conformity is your soul. Because every time you pretend to be someone you're not, just to be accepted, you trade your authenticity for approval. And that trade always ends in resentment. But the price of dangerous solitude, of radical self-ownership, it's discomfort, it's distance, it's the long, slow walk away from the crowd toward a quieter life, a deeper life. And eventually, something beautiful happens. You begin to attract the right people, not those who need you to be weak to feel strong, but those who recognize your strength because they've built their own. People who don't drain your energy but mirror it, who don't compete with your independence but respect it. And you'll realize that standing alone isn't the end of connection. It's the beginning of real connection. Because only when you stop needing people can you start choosing them. Only when you're enough for yourself can you fully show up for others. And only when you're dangerous in your solitude can you be safe in your love. So here's the question no one can answer for you. Do you want to be liked or do you want to be free? Because the two rarely go together. The world rewards those who conform. It praises those who echo. It celebrates the ones who fit in, who follow trends, who say what's safe, who keep their edges smooth so they don't make anyone uncomfortable. But freedom, real freedom, that belongs to the few who are willing to stand alone, not out of pride, but out of principle. The few who would rather live in quiet alignment with their values than loud applause for their performance. The few who understand that presence is louder than noise and peace is more powerful than validation. And here's the paradox. The more whole you become alone, the more magnetic you become to others. Not because you need them, but because you don't. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you've stopped trying altogether. That energy, that self-sufficiency, that's what people crave, even if they don't understand it, because it's rare. In a world addicted to attention, the person who doesn't seek it shines the brightest. In a world full of noise, the one who listens to themselves stands out with even trying. So no, being dangerous isn't about being feared. It's about being untouchable in the ways that matter most. Untouchable by manipulation. Untouchable by shame. untouchable by the fragile expectations of a world built on insecurity. The world doesn't need more approval chasers. It needs more people who are solid in who they are, who don't collapse under pressure, who don't sell out for likes, who aren't waiting to be told how to live. It needs people like you if you're willing to do the work. So here's the call. Turn down the noise, step back from the performance, sit in the quiet, get to know yourself like your life depends on it, because it does. The next time you find yourself alone, don't rush to escape it. Stay there, feel it, let it shape you, because that silence, that space, that solitude, that's where your strength is waiting. Not in the applause, not in the validation, not in the crowd, but in you. And when you finally meet yourself there, fully, honestly, without distraction, you'll understand what the ancients meant when they said, the most powerful man is the one who needs nothing. And in a world that fears that kind of man, be him.